Welcome to the Harun Rabbani podcast, and today we have a beautiful soul joining us. I'm gonna ask some interesting questions in the context of you know me guys. I don't go soft with my questions. It'll be quite hard hitting because we're in a bit of a state of chaos in this world. 2021 has not been easy. Neither has 2020. What does 2022? What is going to unfold for us? Now, one of the biggest things, of course, that I personally feel, as someone who's a philosopher, who's a teacher, and also someone who likes to question everything, is where are we going to end up in, given all this division, this divide and rule? There's a us and them, and it's like everyone's tearing their hair out, fighting each other. So without further ado, let's bring in Adam, and I'm going to, even before the intro of who you are, let's ask, why is there so much division? I mean, you might not know the answer, of course. Why is there so much divisiveness going on in the world right now, Adam?
Well, it's wonderful to be here with you, Ron. Thank you for having me. These certainly are extraordinary times. And it's great to explore some of these most important questions as we kick off our 2022 and really let go of the last couple of years. And maybe it just begs the better question of letting go all that no longer serves us. And should we really be even surprised of the division? The very nature of the problem that is bifurcated, the very essence of our humanness is a divisive nature. It divides everything and everybody into a separate place of our own selves. And I speak as I humbly want to say a recovering narcissist. but I speak in that in terms of the division and the chaos is an integral and natural part of the world in many ways, because we live in that duality. We live in a place of male and female, you and me, rich and poor, all these kind of things. Yeah, that is the nature of this world we live in. What I'm finding is important is it's a choice that we can make. Can we live simply in a place of our own separation and our own division in the contentiousness and chaos? Or can we also kind of lift ourselves a bit higher? Imagine there's a playing field of your life. There's all these things going on in the world, be it the pandemic or economic challenges or war, everything that happens in our world. And then we lift ourselves out of it a bit and we bring new perspective. And in the perspective, we can see the wholeness. So the great shift and the great invitation, Ron, that I believe that's offered right now to anyone that wants to lift ourselves up is to move beyond the division, to see it, to experience it, yes, but to experience with a whole new set of eyes, the eyes of the heart, the ears of the heart. Yes.
So we'll explore that. And again, I'm going to play devil's advocate. I'm with you on this completely, by the way. So the whole point of me, really, for those of you who've been following my shows and so on, is running the Harun Rabbani podcast, is I want to explore all the different facets and aspects of consciousness in a very practical way as well. So what you say is great. However, people have been traumatized. I mean, it was said, even in 2020, that this is the biggest psychological experiment that humanity is going through. I don't think anyone's been left untouched. A lot of people have lost people to the virus. A lot of people have been separated away from their family by choice or by force. There's a lot of anger and hostility. There's one group of people who believe, following the government agenda and so on, the mainstream agenda, who believe everybody on the other side who aren't following their agenda, they're wrong, they're stupid, they're idiots. And the people on this side have this also sadness and upset and hostility towards this side. So I've never in my lifetime, and I've been through racism and fights and so on growing up in rough neighborhoods. I've never seen so much division. How do you cross that bridge from this whole, it's like the grieving process of losing an old world that we used to live in only recently? How do we bridge it into this new state of consciousness?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for your approach to exploring things, because folks, for all you that listen into this podcast, questioning the intelligence is a key approach to bringing more unity together. So I love the approach to it in the first place. And so I want to honor that as a real way that we can kind of bridge these seemingly unbridgeable differences. And, one of the things that I explored quite extensively as a student of A Course in Miracles over the last 18 years, and I teach it as well as my shamanic practices and many other things that I've kind of woven into my work in the world, Arun, is that we all share three things. We all share three things. And the three things we share are: we have a thought system of division. We all have this thought system, and it's called the ego mind. And it's a separate thought system that sees things and experiences are differences. Now, there's nothing wrong with differences, because we're all unique and beautiful and quite brilliant in our own way. We share that thought system. We also share another thought system, a thought system of our oneness, of our wholeness, our unity, what I refer to is the genius, the brilliance of who we are. We all share a thought system of that. And then thirdly, we have an ability to choose. We can choose divisive, division, and separation. And folks, look at where that's gotten us. Look at where that's left our very home, the planet we live on. Ailing, struggling. 68% of our biodiversity has died off in the last 40 years. We got a lot going on. Not going there necessarily today unless you want to, but most importantly, that is that thought system of separation. And then we have the thought system where we are co-creating, we're collaborating. And the question is, right now, as you speak of the bridge, how do we bridge one thought system to another thought system? Well, we each have a choice. We can choose. And like you said, and I'm so with you on this, and I think you're on this in so many ways, this is an opportune and a powerful moment in the millennia for us to choose. It truly is a choice point. And what do you want to choose? So I believe what I think is a key component of why we, God forbid you turn on the news, there's nothing positive. It's all divisive, and everybody's pointing their own guns and their own weapon of news and information. Nobody knows what to trust. It doesn't feel like a very safe world. And the earth and Mother Nature is a very safe place. The garden is a place of love or nurturing. And we seemingly think that we've forgotten that of this place of our own safety and trust. So what I have found is that our ability to look at that clearly and succinctly, that way of separation, and say, you know what? I get to choose. I'm not going to give up my power to an authority, a governmental authority. By God, look at what's happened with our climate. We just had COP26 up there in the homeland where you're living, up in Scotland. And look at what's going on with how that is proceeding, because we seemingly have wanted to give, oh, our governments can handle this. Well, no, we've been talking about the time to take our power back, to bridge the world of division to the world of our unity, of our oneness. Does that make sense? Hopefully
Absolutely.
that helps us a little bit.
I'm certainly hoping the listeners, it makes sense to you, because it certainly makes sense to me now. You mentioned, and by the way, I mean, I'm very much about Mother Earth, is my first mother. So I'm totally about what's going on the planet. I'm not sure what COP26 was about ultimately, because I think, as per usual, I think it's just like a little parade. It's a bit of a show and tell, but nothing's going to happen. I've been following politics since I was a kid. I'm an economist by education, so I follow the money. And I'm like, well, okay, what's really going on? So I don't buy into this crap. I'm sorry.
That's right.
The whole thing is in my first book that I wrote. One of the first things I said in my introduction was question everything. Don't believe a word I say. Do your own damn research. Now, you're right. We abdicate our powers to the governments and people in places, and we rely on the mainstream media. And for those of you who don't understand, of course, the mainstream media only works because the news works because they know that as a major trigger point to reaction is bad news. And of course, it sells papers, it sells advertising space, and including the BBC, who, oh my goodness, I've been in the BBC being interviewed so many times, but my God, the level of distrust within themselves is incredible. So if you were to say, I'm separating things out only because as humans, we need to pigeonhole things so we can understand. Let's say our listeners are going through this, chaotic phase. They want more clarity about their life, about life itself. How are there distinct components? One of them being, of course, we need to pay attention to Mother Earth. Where do we start building the unity? Well, where do you start?
Within. And easy to say that. So let me create a little more context to that very clear and straightforward answer, because we will only find and experience unity in the world when we experience it within ourselves, right? Of course. And what I discovered in my work, and I would imagine you probably have found this in the great work that you're doing in helping people run, is that there's 4 life experiences. So I ask today, and I'll put forth rhetorically for the audience to, well, what life experience are you having? 1, the first life experience is the world is happening to you. In other words, this is when we play the victim card. This is when we play the perpetrator. This is when we point the finger and say, oh, that son of a bitch. This is when we say, I'm innocent, they're guilty. A key attribute of the thought system of the ego that keeps us in a separate place of bifurcation in everything we do. Misery, disease. And it just look at what's happening on the planet. We cannot deny the facts associated with the wellness, body, mind, spirit, wellness of the human. It's not a pretty picture, but it's only part of the picture. And that first experience is, are you living that as your life experience? Okay. Most are. 2, the second life experience is life is happening from you. And you might, sense this a little bit, because what do we want to do when all this fear-based volume is just flooding the world? It's fear-based. It's motivational based. Okay. It's not faith-based. It's not trusting. It's not safe. It's not inspirational. It's fear and motivation. So what do? The second life experience is life's happening from us. So we want to control everything we do. And as a man, I know this one really good. As an ex kind of businessman in the world, was a world of controlling, and then we manipulate, and then we react. It's a reactionary life experience, but we're controlling it and we're functioning it. And by God, I've got more money than the next guy, or the next better thing than the next person. It's just another form of extreme narcissism. I know this world very well. I lived it much of my 60 years, and it made me feel really ill. The third experience is, which I believe is the invitation right now, sitting and sharing with you today. And that is, oh my gosh, life is happening for me. The earth is a great school, right? I mean, some of the great masters, the Rumis, the Hafazs, some great part of your lineage and wisdom that you carry, they come in this glory of the curiosity of this life school. Why am I in this relationship, for example? What am I to learn from this person? Maybe somebody you're going to divorce. Maybe you're going through a relationship challenge that you are not communicating. Well, here it is. It's a great learning opportunity. So everything and everybody, I believe, offers us an opportunity just to be a better and most optimal version of who we are, in our genius. And then lastly is the fourth experience is life is happening through me. In other words, we're embracing what Sri Aurobindo said, the divine life. The divine life is moving through us like the life force. It's just enlivening us with passion and purpose, where we are now seeing the world not just for what it is down in the playing field of this earth and this chaos in this world, but now we're flying like an eagle high, and we can fly and see things, and then we can play where we want to. So hopefully that gives us some ideas about and thoughts around, what is this invitation right now? What is that bridge? What is the pathway? One of them. So I'm playing with that and having a lot of fun doing it.
I absolutely love how you've just nailed it in my mind, which is in essence just summarizes: you can play the victim, you can play the controller, the narcissistic approach. You can play the gratitude, which is life is happening for me. But then, and that's an amazing life to have. It takes a level of transcendence to that next level where it is flowing through you. A lot of people say, go with the flow. I said, no, become the flow. What if you are the flow? Let us explore that. You mentioned the word. And before we do that, actually, what I'd like for you to do is perhaps share a bit of your background. So you've got a shamanic, but you said you were in business, but then you've done some shamanic work, or you're doing it. Please share with our audience a bit more about yourself before we continue.
Well, I would be happy to. And I was, I still am. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I come from the business world. I believe business is the largest and most powerful social engine that can innovate and create incredible change in fairly short order if it chooses to listen. So I still am an entrepreneur, a businessman in my own way, but ultimately in my work over the years of following the money as an investment banker, primarily in real estate and real estate development, I came to a point of really achieving, and at the pinnacle of all that I wanted to achieve in so many ways, I didn't feel good. It didn't feel good. And it was kind of like Tums in the morning and tequila at night. And I wasn't serving my children. I have 3 gorgeous daughters. And Actually 5 granddaughters now, if you can believe it. Talk about
Brilliant.
feminine
Brilliant.
wisdom.
Yeah. Wow.
But I recognize that in a way that was, that proverbial midlife, crisis, if you want to call it, or breakthrough, if you want to call it, or dark night of the soul, whatever that is. We all go through this human journey where we get put in the proverbial popcorn cooker. We're in there, and we're gonna get sloshed around. And and when I went into that place, which is a very dark and difficult place, and I'm holding anybody that may be in this place now in their life to know that you are loved and we're here together, and that the journey that I took was really taking those steps, into mindfulness and meditation and a yoga practice, and really exploring Eastern and Western philosophies and traditions. Less so on the religiosity side. I'm not much into monotheism or having one, narrow way of exploring the greater totality who I was as a man and as a human. So I gravitated to shamanism and A Course in Miracles, an interesting little combination in its own right, if I do say. But I was called to the earth. I was called to tuning to feminine wisdom and principles. And the indigenous cultures, they lived on the earth and very close to the earth, and they knew that, and they were interconnected with sky. And not just all the elements, but the ether. And so what I began doing is just traveling throughout the Southwest here in America, Central America, South and Central America, and really exploring the deep wisdom teaching of the men and women that carry powerful medicine. And they carry a lot of magic in the most positive, loving way. So I began that journey, and then as I shared earlier, just tapped into a Course in Miracles, which was a game changer for me. As an approach, it combined the heart of shamanism, the earthliness of our richness of our soil within ourselves in connection, both metaphysically, but also very practically. I mean, they built the pyramids and they made water go, all kinds of amazing things. So they were inner engineers and architects and astronomers. They were the original technologists. And I've learned immensely from those traditions, but also to bring a bit of what I can come to know is Gnostic Christianity. And A Course in Miracles set forth an approach to the oneness and wholeness of who we are by drawing a very clear distinction by what is separate, not by what has to be in our oneness. It's only by looking at that separation. So that's been a bit of my spiritual journey, and I'm alive today, just writing and celebrating, and also going through my own humanness and my own fallibilities.
Absolutely. And that, if it stops, that means it's time to transcend and leave this human experience anyway. So thankfully, that's continuing. Now, let's briefly touch on Course in Miracles. It's been spoken about by many people, including my friend Marianne Williamson, I'm sure you know. So this is not a biblical book. It's not one of the, like one of the Abrahamic traditions. It's not like the Vedas or anything like that. So what's so special about a book called Course in Miracles, which it was written by psychologists, wasn't it, back in the 60s or way back? How is something like that so profound in this day and age? I thought the age of wisdom went thousands of years ago.
Absolutely. Yes, this was elucidated by two professors at New York University back in the 60s, and ultimately transduced into word, into book. And, ultimately, the course has been a very defining piece of work in many ways in and of itself, although seemingly difficult and complex and voluminous, it's actually really simple. It's so simple that the complex linear left brain doesn't get it. So, and of course, it's not for everybody. And the key things that I think there are many, but if we synthesize what is the course offer to an everyday human being, and the course offers a clear choice. It makes the choice available in the first place. If you think about it, a lot of us don't know we have a choice. We think we're just living in this little piece of our mind of ego and separation, which is just a little pea in the bigger picture versus living in our wholeness and our unity. And that we've given up our power, as we spoke about. We've given up our power to choose. So here's what the course does. The course looks at the content of this thought system. In other words, it gives a very clear picture of the thought system of separation. And it takes us through a 365-day workshop where we look at that thought system. And we begin to have a greater awareness of that thought system. And it offers another choice. And here's the key, because if we're informed, which is our outer world experience, in other words, right now we're chatting along and people are tuning in and they're going, whoa, this is really cool. It's still in your outer world. So the course says the outside picture is a reflection of an inward condition. In other words, it invites us to come back to where we can choose again, where we can really make a choice between one thought system of separation and one thought system of unity. And the key here is the course presents it as there's one problem. And within that one problem contains the solution. The one problem of separation has created this world of chaos. It takes us, it's the antithesis of unification, of love, of oneness, of our joy. So in order to move beyond that problem, we must Einstein this thing. You can't solve the problem from the place that the problem was created. That's a big conundrum. We've had teachers and brilliant scholars and everybody come along, and we got a lot of stuff and a lot of brilliance out there. But wait a second, is that getting us back to the problem? And not only back to the problem, but the source of the problem, because only at the source can we move beyond and through the problem, not around it. We humans love to do that. We do anything we can to get around something, whether it's a pill, a sexing, or drinking, or we find a guru and we forget, wait a second, the power is within us. So the Course in Miracles takes us back to the source of the problem, because the beauty and truth, the indelible laws of the universe and spiritual laws always say the solution to the problem is the problem. It's not outside. It's if I only, not over. No. So the Course is brilliant in this because it takes us to the source of the problem and gives us an opportunity to choose into the truth, the indelible truth of who we are as brilliant, bright lights, or geniuses, as I say today. And so, hey, it's great to be here, choosing with you, all of you.
Beautiful. So for those, as somebody who's been doing so much healing work, and you've probably done way more than I have. And the point, it's not a competition. The point is this, that what I've discovered over the years again and again and again is everything in life is about your relationships. Your relationships with yourself is the number one relationship. About 2015, I did a Ultimate Soulmate Summit with lots of big name people, including Marianne Williamson, including Dr. John Gray, and I forget his name now. Andrew. He's a Sufi and he's a shaman as well. But
Andrew Harvey.
Yeah. We're talking about 7 layers of soulmates, 7 different soulmates, and ultimately the ultimate soulmate is you with yourself. And so what's going on inside your body and inside your being is a projection, is being projected outside. So everything going on outside, in essence, is to do with your relationship with yourself. So I haven't actually read the Course in Miracles, believe it or not, but I've read elements of it. What's the value? And I know this conversation isn't just about Course in Miracles, but I think it's important since we're touching on it. What's the value of someone getting a copy of the Course in Miracles and reading through it bit by bit versus doing it in a group or with a mentor or a guide? Which is going to give them the most benefit in your mind?
Both. And so my personal practice, one is with the Course, and my relationship with the voice that's transduced through Helen, the one who elucidated and translated, is Jesus. And in that relationship that I have with Spirit and that voice, it's an intimate and very deeply personal experience. Now, others may choose to be more in one of the online A Course in Miracles groups. They do better in a more organized and disciplinary fashion. But it's both, and I think it's a personal choice of how to approach it. And you brought up something, Arun, is that's so important, and it's relationship. And our shamanic brothers and sisters, the medicine men and women of the millennium, focused extensively on relationship. And they use the word Ayni, A-Y-N-I. And Ayni is, what is your relationship with yourself, with others, and the earth? That is the key component. And I'll share with you a little deeper on this essence, because the Course invites us into a deeper relationship with ourselves and to remove the obstacles that keep us from a very divine, loving presence with ourselves, that keep us in a state of, let's just say, tension and not very peaceful. But what I have found, and you mentioned Andrew Harvey, and you mentioned others around the idea of relationship. What I found is on my path, that I was being called to love the places within myself that felt so deeply unloved. My healing journey, and the invitation to know that I'm held and loved in that journey, to feel that love that's very present for all of us, not externally, but internally. Call it the mother, call it the father, call it an angel, whatever it is to you. That presence is available for every single one of us. And in that journey, what I discovered is what I now speak to quite a bit is the 4 types of relationships that we can have in the world. And the first type of relationship is I refer to as role mates. So we're playing a role, okay? I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a businessman. We identify with these societal roles. We adopt them as if there's nothing else, because we grew up in a family or in a culture that says, if you're not doing that, then I'll be damned, you're an outcast and shame on you. So we play these roles, and we may play, pieces of all four of these, by the way. So think about this. What role are you playing rhetorically? I'll throw it out there, because the second invitation is we play on a soul level. So we've got our physical world. Now we're playing more deeply, more spiritually, right? And we're, oh my God, I have a soulmate. We look for love. I found my soulmate. And of course, soulmates are not just people that we form intimate relationships with and become partners with, but we also have soulmates that could be maybe a child of ours. Maybe it's a collaborator, a business associate. We have all kinds of soul tribe that's available out there. And right now, I'm doing a lot of shows out there, and I get more people talking about, I'm looking for my community of my soul community. And so we can really tap into that field. The third piece that I have kind of added into my own personal equation, and I believe is the invitation right now. I believe this is the invitation that humanity's being asked to embrace as in relationship. How do you want to be in relationship? And then what I believe, it's the third piece more than any of the four, and that piece is whole mates, where we are coming together in our expression on the planet, of which our indigenous brothers and sisters and shamans and keepers of the planet that are here with us and working with us, they refer to as the Homo luminous. We're light beings. We've taken upon ourselves to return to the place we never left, our proverbial home of wholeness, of unity, of oneness. We're always enlightened. It's just we've forgotten. But the idea of wholeness expresses the sovereignty of our souls. And I believe right now, Haran, the biggest choice point coming is, are we gonna surrender our soul and our sovereignty to technology and offload ourselves? It's not that it's a bad thing. It's a choice. Do you want to live in your indelible truth in light of your soul? And that's being whole. That's the essence of why I'm even here, because I want everybody to know from this one soul's perspective, we have that choice. And that choice is going to determine the future and the destiny of our children and their children, and perhaps even that of humanity. And it's a big choice, and it's here right now. It's already present, and we're just not looking to see it for what it is. So that whole mate piece is the game right now. The fourth piece is divine mates. We live with divine. We are in a place that is in a transcendent field that is holding the essence of where we are both ascending and descending. And I speak to this in the Divine Genius, the Unlearning Curve, and both my wisdom teachings, there's 13 of them, and wisdom teachings 11 and 12, which take us from our evolutionary impulse nature to our involutionary nature, which is the divine nature, and our connection point, let's go like that, of those two divine mates. So I love that you brought up this relationship piece, because isn't it about being in relationship?
This is all music to my ears. So role mates, you're playing a role. This is where we have all our identities, and we identify with our identities, and we go to war over identities, be it religion, be it title, and so on. Soulmates, of course. There's more to soulmates than a tantric soulmate, of course. there's the whole mate, which I absolutely adore, and ultimately the divine. Did you call it divine mate or
divine mate?
Divine mate, yeah.
We're dancing and we have, it's an intimization, it's intimizing our own being with the divine, whatever that may be.
It's an intimate dance with the divine. I absolutely adore that. So for some people won't know this word, but I'd like to nail it, which is, what is a shaman and what is not a shaman? In other words, what is a shaman and what is something that purports to be a shaman isn't? And I say that primarily because there's a lot of confusion about, some people who go for a weekend or a month away in the Amazon and then come back as a shaman. And I'm like, yeah, right. Okay, so what is and what is not a shaman?
Yes, absolutely. Well, there's the pop-up ayahuasca and, pop-up shaman experiences, all over the globe these days. So, but anyway, we'll leave that alone for the moment. A shaman is a man or a woman, a medicine man or woman that carries the power and the deeper indelible truth of spiritual laws that are innate in not only Mother Earth, but in the supernatural world. Mm. So the shaman bridges the world that we operate within, the 3D world of form that we see and we smell with our 5 senses and all the things that we do, with the 5D or greater dimensionality that's available to us in what was now becoming a wonderful space of quantum science, the new science of the quantum field, and the entanglement of ourselves in that greater field. In other words, the shaman is the intermediary between the biofield. We're functioning in the biofield, the 3D world. We're functioning in the biofield and bridges the world of energy, of light, of the quantum field. And in the integration of those seemingly world of form and formless comes the magic. And that's why many of them and many that are present with us purport to be magicians. And it's not that they're not magicians, because the master shamans are magicians, and they bring the medicine for their client or for the world that will lift people and inspire people to move away from the old places of limiting belief systems that are in the energy body. In other words, the shaman, unlike a Western doctor, for example, that is focused in the physicality and even the psychological nature of our biofield, the shaman is working in the energetic of the body. And in that place of the energetic, we store old traumas, old belief systems, things that have occurred in all our soul's journey. Some in the traditions refer to that as our karma. Whatever that may be, the name of the game for the shaman is to work in that luminous body, to identify and to track those energies that are stuck in us, that are all of a sudden showing up. My God, my shoulder isn't working. Oh, my heart is crushed. And I think, in the great work you're doing, psychological work and also medicine work that you carry on, is that we offer people to come into a journey that's beyond that place of physicality. So the shaman navigates the world of form and formless.
Beautiful. So that's absolutely beautifully put. And so for a shaman who enters training, and we're not here to promote whether you should do shamanism or not, just so that when you do turn to it, it's like if you go to a doctor in the UK, there's certain certification, they'll work in certain environments. With the shaman, how long does a novice shaman spend, well, a student spend in the field before they can be qualified, for want of a better term, as a shaman?
Well, thank you for that. And I'm glad we're getting to that second piece of your initial question. And it's simply, one of the key differentials I want to just emphasize here is that we've created medical systems that are designed to foster and often create disease. So we're dealing with an effect, versus we're dealing instead of the cause. Now, that's not to be de minimis to Western medicine, because obviously it's brilliant and it does have great benefit. And I'm not advocating anything other than that, but eyes wide open, because the idea here is, how do we get to holistic whole health and wellness? And there are many that are venturing into the shamanic path. And the shamanic path there's different offerings that are available in the shamanic path. There's the path of fire. There's the path that is more traditionally around water, which is very emotional in its nature. There's the path of a mental path, which is very airy type of path. So there's a few different, I would say, let's just call it specialties. But the specialty is based on the training. So anytime we're interacting with a shaman, the key before you even have any interaction is to understand the root of the shaman that's coming forth. And that root will really speak directly to the shaman's ability to help heal you or deceive you. And in the ability to heal you, the shaman will often come forth in a way that is centered deeply in the heart. And you can smell this. You can attune to it with a highlighted discernment, but many are off doing the ayahuasca, and they don't even know where the ayahuasca comes from. They don't even know the shaman that's holding the sacred space. Can he even hold the space? Because the sacred space is just that. It invites a lot of powerful forces. And when people are unleashing and unlocking energy from their energy body that they've carried for ages, there's a lot of stuff coming into that sacred space. And the shaman is the one that must hold that and keep it safe and trusting. And it's not just a shaman. There's the master shaman. That's the ayahuasquero. Nobody, in my opinion, should be doing ayahuasca, which is not for everybody. And I'm not an advocate necessarily of it all, although I've done it a dozen times. Nobody should be working with anything other than a master ayahuasquero in sacred space with medicine that shaman has brewed him or herself. And the key here is that you suss it out, you ask the questions. Now, my shamanic path was one of fire. You put it in the fire, you take it to the fire, it's very quantum. And that shaman is there to empower you. That shaman is there to enrich you. That shaman is there to put himself out of a job. That is what a true shaman does.
That sounds like a true wisdom keeper, a true teacher, just to put themselves out of a job. So you've worked under the guidance of two of my heroes. One is Barbara Marx Hubbard, and the other one is Alberto Vivaldo. Do you want to share with our audience a bit about their background? And I after this, I want to dive into your book and we're going to discuss that as well.
Absolutely. Well, I want to, and thank you for bringing these two beautiful souls up. And in tomorrow is Barbara's birthday. Barbara's been here in this room many times. We've sat here together. And it's funny, I don't miss her. I know she's gone, but she's so here with me.
Yeah.
She left us a few years ago.
Yeah.
Right in divine timing in her usual style. Barbara, left us all, but I will speak to what she left with me and why her legacy and her work is so alive, because Barbara was an evolutionary of most radical proportions. And what do I mean by evolutionary? Barbara was one that could see and feel and share the power of the human being as spiritual being, and then now, as I say, as quantum being, to co-create life, to co-create and build and explore and play in the world in which we live right now. The shaman says this is, we dream our world into being. And Barbara was a master of this, because her ability to use what has been around for ages, which is the wheel, the ancient medicine wheel, which is a key and integral teaching of shamanic and indigenous cultures over the millennia. And Barbara was one that brought forth the vision of conscious evolution and to the empowerment of the individual to embrace their sovereignty as conscious co-creators with the earth and with the quantum field. Beautiful, beautiful, sweet, loving person. Bless you, Barbara. Yeah. And Alberto Vialdo, Dr. Vialdo, I met early on my path, which was back in 2004, Ron. And, I had one of those old cassette decks, used to have these cassette decks. Some of us might not even know there's a little tape deck, and you put it in a little thing and you listen to it. So I had a session early on in my dark night with a shaman, and his teacher was Alberto Vialdo, and he gave me this little cassette deck that was kind of scruffily and rough, muffled, but you could feel the vibration. You could feel the truth of the message. It was transcendent of the messenger. Nothing to do with Dr. Vialdo in many ways. It was the messenger. It was the lineage, as we call that, our spiritual family. And I had a most happenstance connection with him very early. And that connection was, I had decided to sign up for one of his adventures in Peru. They called the Via Illuminata. And so I signed up to take that adventure. And I was flying to go to Peru for the first time. This was in 2005. And I was going through Miami to go to Lima. And so I'm sitting in the lounge, and look who walks through the door. Alberto Vialdo. And there he was with his Indiana Jones hat. And I introduced myself and invited him over, and he says, I want to buy you a glass of wine. I said, okay. We got in the plane, and we were sitting next to each other. And we took the midnight flight to Lima, and we landed at dawn And the rest has been history. We've been very close and connected for many, many years. And I honor his work. And he's trained many, many thousand. He's the real deal. And as well as his beautiful, beautiful bride, Marcela Lobos, who's doing phenomenal work on the planet as well. Yes, beautiful. I celebrate both of them. Thank you for asking.
No, and it's important to put context. I think it's very, for anyone who wants to make a difference to the world and in the world, is to be fully aware. You're not alone. You're not going to do it alone. We're a family. We're a community. That's how it works. And they're to be surrounded by giants. They're the shoulders you're going to be standing on. So make sure you surround yourself with giants. That's my outlook, has been since I've been a kid. Okay, so now let's talk about the divine genius. We get the divine bit, but what is a divine genius? We're not talking about like intellect, of course, we're talking beyond that. So what is the divine genius in terms of the book that you've written?
Well, thank you for that. And thanks for connecting into the divine genius, the unlearning curve, as I say in the subtitle. And a little earlier on in our wonderful conversation, we mentioned the divine coming through us. We referenced Sri Aurobindo, the divine life. We referenced one of the wisdom teachings that's in the book of divine genius called involution, the descent of the divine. And the divine genius, it could be referred to in any number of ways, but I have referred to it as the amalgamation of the Buddha, of the Christ, of the Krishna, of the great Sufi masters, the crucible where we all come together, and that in that place, then the quintessence, the dewdrop that would fall from the sky is this divine nature. And the divine genius is the one, not a person, a place, but it is the oneness of the dewdrop, that little piece that falls in through and all of life. So that is the divine genius. And here we are in our humbleness as geniuses. That's the divine genius. And in this place of our genius, our little genius, our journey, I believe, is to be the receiver of this divineness, to allow that to be present. And that's the divine genius, and hence the name and title of my new book.
So for millennia, going back to the ancient Egyptians, if you wanted to connect to divine, you go through a bishop, a pope, a priest-like figure. So what you're saying is, which I totally agree with, we are at that level of consciousness in humanity, is at that consciousness where we don't need an interceder. We don't need, it's helpful having mentors, but actually we've got direct access to divinity. And we're not talking about the religious divinity, not talking about religion, guys. There's a few religious, although there's some spirituality in some religions, I have to say. Within your book, within the title, you say the unlearning. Now, what are we unlearning?
Absolutely. And just a real note to transition to that unlearning piece is we're unlearning the thought system that subjugates our power in truth to be and live our lives as sovereign, to be free from the stories of others. And religion obviously propagates this. We find excuses to not be in our power. And forgive me, well, maybe not forgive me, because I want to disrupt the thought or any thought that may think that there's a limiting belief that can keep us in a place of that separation from our truth and our power and our genius and the divine genius. And the unlearning is an essential process. The Teslas, the Einsteins, and all the amazing men and women that are now on the planet doing incredible work around the idea of their own, of empowering the human to our greatest potential. It offers us an opportunity of like, well, first of all, why me? I can't do that. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy of that. And we make excuses. We play small. And for those of us that may be having this because it's normal, I think all of us have this. Remember, we share that thought system. and in that journey to get out of our own way. And unlearning is the process that allows us to get out of the way of the ego thought system that keeps us locked in that playing small. So unlearning is known more deeply as, paradoxically, as deep learning.
Yeah.
Now look at a great example. There are many, but if we want to, this device, this iPhone, we look at this machine that we're talking on. Wow, right? Like, whoa, this is amazing. And how did it come to being? Well, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak and Paul Allen used to hang out in the garage together. And they built one of those big clunky Apple computers in that garage. And the greatest thing that they loved was not when it was put together, but when they took it apart. Because in the taking apart, they unlearned what no longer worked, or what was bulky, or what was heavy, or what was clunky. And in the taking apart, in the unlearning of the way we put it together, we all of a sudden we become a new and better version of ourselves, just like the Apple computer became an extraordinary, powerful machine. And guess what? The computer, the Apple machine, whatever machine you're listening to, be it this one or one we're looking at, is nothing compared to the extraordinary nature of who you and I are.
Absolutely.
Unlearning reveals that.
Unlearning reveals the true learning. Beautiful. So I was taking a peek at your website earlier on, and you're going to love this, right, Adam? Because in 2008, 2009, actually, was it 8? No, 9, 2009, I did my next lot of, so first lot of podcasts I'd started in 2007. 2009, I got this download for the Cosmic Google, which is to write a book. And before I wrote a book, I thought, okay, and part of that was to do a radio show, podcast. The word podcast wasn't familiar. It had been invented. I didn't realize it was there yet for another few years. And my book title, Human 2.0, The Consciousness Revolution. And I looked at your website and it says Human 2.0.
No, get out of here.
Yeah.
You're just pulling my leg. You're messing with me.
But well,
I love it. No, I know you're saying it. I love that. Wow, that's cool.
So that's the book that's been in writing, piece by piece, since 2009. I've written other books since then, but yeah, that's still in the making of it. Second book to follow up is Human 3.0, which is actually generations ahead. and then there'll be a
Beautiful.
prequel one. Prequel will be Human 1.0, all to be made into movies. So we're totally on the same wavelength. Now, for the remainder of the show, it would be so amazing if you could perhaps share some of, because you share 13 wisdom pieces, but in particular, from my understanding in your book, would you share one or two of those wisdom pieces with our audience so that they can start getting it? Just strongly recommended. I haven't ordered the book, but I've looked at it. That, yeah, this is definitely going to be in my library. So, yeah, go ahead.
Well, be happy to. And you know, we spoke about the bridge, and we spoke about the challenge as an analogy of the bridge in the shaman bridging world of form and formless. How are we bridging division and unity in a world that seems more divisive? So it's and I think of the wisdom, the 13 wisdom teachings, as the scaffolding, the pieces of the bridge, and that each of us must create our own bridge. This isn't Adam's bridge. It's not Satguru's bridge. It's not Jesus's or Krishna's or Rumi. This is your bridge. And by God, I don't know if you're like me, but I wanted to build a strong bridge. I was interested in building a beautiful bridge. I wanted something that I knew could be sturdy, so I can embrace my old 1.0 nature, that old world of the Adam, the Earth Conqueror, as I referred to myself affectionately, to Adam, the EarthKeeper. Where can I serve? Into a world of away from scarcity, into a world of abundance. And I wanted to build that bridge. So these 13 wisdom teachings I put forth to help the reader engage in experience of their own bridge building, meaning there's a divine design that I and many others over the millennium have experienced in their life. And in that design comes a blueprint of how we can step over that bridge, and how you can choose how you want to build your bridge and step over. And the 13 universal wisdom teachings are universal in nature. And that's the point. And I'll share two of them very quickly with it. And I'm going to use two that are in the first phases of what I call of development. In other words, if you're building that bridge, you want to have the pillars to build the bridge on. Okay, these are the pillars to build your bridge. Okay, we're not walking on water here, folks. We're actually experiencing these pragmatically and practically. Okay, we show up for. So the two key pieces in the first four wisdom teachings, which are those pillars to that bridge, are one, forgiveness, true forgiveness. Heard it a million times. True forgiveness is the basis of which we free ourselves from the past. I mean, we have 80, 90,000 thoughts a day. Vast majority, maybe even 99%, are based upon the past. We live in the future's past. Again, you can't solve the problem from the past.
Well,
you can't solve the problem.
Well, you're actually projecting into your future a pathway based on your past.
Ah, interesting.
Isn't that what you're doing? Because if you're, I mean, one of the teachings I share very strongly is these continuous, especially the dominating thoughts, are instructions to your consciousness, instructions to your subconscious mind, instructions to your brain to reinforce what's already been happened, especially if it's
it's a beautiful presencing there, because our neuroscientists have done so much amazing work of, about how we are wiring and firing and rewiring. And, you've done some things with Dr. Joe, one of my neighbors up here. And the piece of true forgiveness allows us to allow that piece to unwind, in other words, that which has maybe created a trauma in your life. Maybe it was a familiar imprint that came through a parent, a father, or a mother. Maybe it was something that, God forbid, happened that was tragic or miserable. I don't want to be de minimis to anybody in this regard, especially since so much is happening right now. But true forgiveness allows us to remember what we forgot. And what we forgot was the place we are one and connected with each other. In other words, when we forgive ourselves, we're forgiving ourselves and another, not for what happened. It's not to deny the event. Oh, it never happened. I forgive you. That's not clearing the field shamanically, energetically. That is actually just kind of saying, oh, I'll put it over there. I'll file it away in my unconscious. That keeps dictating our lives. So the idea of true forgiveness is to recognize, not deny, but to recognize, hey, I simply forgot this deeper connection that I have in oneness, in the connection with everyone. And just think about it. When we're in that place, not the person or not the image, not the event, but we're in that place, what are we reminded of? Our wholeness. We're reminded of ourselves as love. So in this place, we are able to move beyond the power that locks us into our life story. In other words, we get to build our pathway across the bridge. We get to write our new story. If you're a writer, you get to write it, not live the past. So I love that as an idea, but you're right. It opens the pathway forward like it magically will appear. Voila.
Doesn't it just also bring this another level dimension of compassion for oneself and towards others through the act of forgiveness as well?
Well, so much so. It's such a form of self-love. It's so nurturing. It's like, oh God, I don't have to carry that anymore. Oh, I did wrong. I'm bad. I'm guilty. I mean, we use guilt as a weapon against ourselves. We use our ignorance. Oh, I didn't. No, this is freeing ourselves from this into expansion of our consciousness. And it takes me to the second wisdom teaching that I'm going to share today. And and the second, again, is one of the first four foundational wisdom teachings that help build that scaffolding across the bridge. And that second piece is the third wisdom teaching on death. Yeah. And as I embarked on the journey of the divine genius in writing the book, and as I embarked on the journey with Alberto, the very first night that we sat together with the group that was on that adventure with him in Peru, in that hotel, he posed the question, can you get out of this lifetime alive? And that hooked me. Like, what? My gosh. Can you get out of this lifetime alive? What do you mean by that? I mean, what are the implications? Imagine if you could get out of this lifetime alive. I read about the masters and speaking of immortality and the eternal nature of who we are and as souls, as light. But I didn't know what that was. A little neophyte in there, like, oh, wait. So that set off on the quest to get out of this lifetime alive. I wanted to know what that was for myself. I wanted to experience that. And what I refer to in the book is that's the holy grail of being human. It's not simply longevity, which we're going to have a lot of longevity with our biomedicine and everything, but it's getting out of this lifetime alive. And I went on the quest for the holy grail to know that for myself. And in the chapter in the wisdom teaching on death is rebirth. And I'm not talking physical death. This isn't like, oh, I wasn't going to say, oh, I'm going to wait to my last breath to go, what the heck? What did I miss? What didn't I know? This is about dying consciously tonight, like right now. And this is our greater invitation, is to die consciously, to awaken into the human 2.0. And we have the power to do that. And the wisdom teaching on death speaks to that, because I don't remember the quote, who wrote the quote off the minute, but those who die truly live. Yeah. I don't think it was Sun Tzu. I forget it. That's right in the book. I probably could look it up, but I'll keep going with it because I got the book right here.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah, I don't want to hold this up.
So, oh, you're a brother from another mother. That's as the saying goes. I absolutely love and adore what you're sharing. So,
yeah.
So, for anyone who wants to get the copy of the book, strongly recommend it, of course. That's why otherwise I wouldn't do this interview. Trust me, I don't do interviews now because I have to do an interview. I am the producer, and I do things because my heart's resonating. So there's a couple of other things I want to touch upon before we go. But before we do that, I just want to share, if you want a copy of the book, probably on Amazon, and on the show notes will be the website link to Adam's website. Adam, I sense you're a great teacher. And if somebody wanted to learn besides the book and take it to the next level, are you doing? I don't know the answer to that, so it's not like I'm trying to plug anything. Is there anything, what can people do to learn from you, to get your guidance? What is it that you do?
Well, thank you for that. And right now, I'm actually doing something that I haven't been doing on the scale in the past. I've been quite limited in working with people one-on-one. However, I'm opening myself up to serve the planet and serve people that want to step into their greater truth and embrace the abundance of their lives. And so I'm making myself available for a short time for not too many folks that want to come in and spend some time with me. And I enjoy it immensely. Yeah. And it's not a big money thing at all, but it's a matter of like, who really wants to step up and step in and get super radically honest and say, you know what, I have a mission. And if you have a mission, and we all have a mission, but if you're ready to unlock your genius and live your mission, those are the folks that I want to talk with. These are the men and women that are passionate about life, that want to up their game and their resources. And, you know, that's not a hype. This is about really coming in and living this deep place, this deep authenticity. So I do make myself available for that. If that's not for you, I just released today a master's class. It's a free master's class. You can find it on my website. I love this class because it helps you to discover your genius. And it's a wonderful way, playful way to find that for yourself. And also to, like, maybe you don't know what that mission is clearly. Maybe you want to do things, but you don't know how to show up for that impact. This little succinct class is about 50 minutes, can get you right to the place where you can really explore that deeply. And so I invite people to go to my website, adamhall.solutions, and you can find that master class, as well as numerous other things, life assessments, free ebooks on abundance. I just put another book out a couple weeks ago called Abundance. I mean, let's end this idea of lack and scarcity once and for all. That separate ego mind that we've been talking about, Arun, it's scarce. It lives in scarcity. So I put something out to help people there. You can find it all on my website, adamhall.com.
I think one of so I've run retreats, transformational healing retreats since 2014, my own retreats, 2 day, 3 day, and I've run, I think 21, 22s, even through the lockdown actually. Uh-huh. And here's what I found, brother speaking, is to run those. I would say probably with someone like yourself, minimum 5 to 7 days. and just go total immersion. And I say this to the audience as well, if you are looking to really open up your true purpose, not just stuff you put down on a whiteboard or something or a flip chart, but your true purpose, this is the kind of quality of person you need to be looking out for. And I'd spend a week or so, like minimum a week or so, just in total immersion. Because the truth is that even with a weekend workshop, you only start to begin to scratch the surface of the the surface of the pimple on the tip of the iceberg. Forget the iceberg. So that's something. And well, we can talk about this in the future, because obviously at the time of recording, of course, the challenge is the transportation. So I would love to have you back on, and we can discuss this in the future. And also, what I wanted to ask you was, really briefly touching on this, 3 questions maybe. Number 1, state of the planets. We've messed it up. I don't care what anyone says. I've been watching Sir David Attenborough for the last, I'm 52. I was 52 last week, actually.
Brilliant.
I've been watching him, plead to people, etc., all my life, more or less. And it's only gotten worse. So the talk isn't working. There's not, all the talk isn't working. What do we do?
Well, talk is cheap.
Yeah.
And just look at where that talk's coming from. So talked about, who do you want your medicine or medicine woman to be? Who do you want your guru to be? It's right in the mirror. And in that master's class that I just referenced, I share a clip that speaks directly to your question. And when I'm talking to some of the EarthKeepers around the planet, people doing very powerful work, whatnot. And, we have reached what we know as a punctuated point in evolution, where we've been chugging along and coming along. And all of a sudden, in a very short, rapid period of time, there's been a thrust of change. And what has that thrust resulted in? Ecologically, 68% of our biodiversity has died off. Reference that. But here's the flip side of it. Because climate is not the story, in my opinion. Climate is not just the crisis, in my opinion, nor is the pandemic. I believe that the crisis is our consciousness, that we humans are suffering a crisis of our consciousness, and why we're coming to a choice point. My job and work to do is to help empower the individual to make that choice again. And in that choice of the other side of the punctuated point of evolution is the mirror. And the mirror is the punctuated point of our consciousness. Follow me for a second. If we're chugging along with our consciousness here over the millennia, it's kind of going like the chart's going up. All of a sudden, this short period of time, we're being and offering ability to quantum leap in our consciousness. 2.0 human, 3.0 human. Got to get that workout, brother. We're ready for it.
Yeah.
And in that leap, we can move through the challenges that we're facing, including the one of our transhumanism and the desire of AI and technology to take us away from the indelible truth of who we are as soul beings, light beings, people of love, people that are here to care and celebrate our humanness together. So we can do that. That's the opportunity that's at hand.
Absolutely beautiful. So, when we are in our greatest power and our genius, we're operating from the heart. It doesn't mean we ignore our head. We're living from the heart. We're operating from the heart. When we're operating from the heart, you can't be controlled. You can't be controlled, manipulated, deceived. You can't be lied to. People can lie to you. You'll see through it. And I think this is part of the whole human 2.0. And the 3.0 is by 3.0, nobody can lie ever again, because it's like, you can literally, it's almost like you can see inside of people's being. So my own thoughts are, embrace your fears. And the biggest fear, of course, a lot of people have is death. So I love the fact that you're covering that in your book, because when you can embrace death, and I've done that numerous times, like, okay, bring it on. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? Well, I die. All right, well, bring it on then, because I've had out-of-body experience. I know what it feels like, and it's quite good. So deal with it.
Exactly. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that wisdom.
You're welcome. So, all right. So I've got 1,001 other questions, because this is why I don't prepare, because there's so much that evolves from the conversation. But in context of your book, obviously we're not going to cover the whole book. People have got to buy the book. In context of your book, is there any question that you would have liked for me to have asked, but I haven't asked? And if there is, what would that question be? In context of the divine genius.
We covered a lot of good ground today.
Yeah.
Ron, the guides were here.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to them.
You're welcome.
Thank you for us. Both of us are showing up to embrace our power and our truth, and as best as we can in our ways to offer that, and to invite others to embrace that.
Yeah.
And I believe we really covered the most important things today: forgiveness and death. I believe we explored bridging the world of form and formless. I believe we looked pragmatically at what is happening right now on the planet and getting really real about what this is. I believe we stepped into looking at the outside picture as a reflection of an inward condition, and offering people pragmatic ways to build their bridge, to dream their world into being, to look at their lives of relationships, to look at through their perceptual lens. And I believe that the book Divine Genius, The Unlearning Curve, is an invitation for each of us to ask ourselves a question. And the question is, am I looking through the wrong end of the telescope? Am I looking and searching through one end? Or am I going to turn around and look through the other end, and in searching once and for all, and to discover my genius? And that's the invitation, to look through the other end of the invitation. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Adam. Stay with on the call, and for everybody watching and listening on all the different Spotify and all the other podcast platforms that you might be listening to, thank you very much for watching. Make sure you share this interview. It's not, what I love about what's been discussed is having seen the impact it has on people's lives. Literally, this may be something that causes the shift that a family member or a friend close to you needs right now. Do not assume, as Don Miguel Ruiz says, do not assume anything. Share it. You don't have to share it widely. Share it with 2 people, 3 people. Share it, because I personally know people who would hear this interview and go, wow, I can let go of that. I can move on. And, from what's been shared by Adam, I think it's so important to recognize, whilst there is a lot of people, shouting from the rooftops about stuff which will only bring you down, Adam, and people like him, great souls like him, are beacons of light. And it's important that we stay connected and stay close to beacons of light. So thank you very much once again, Adam, for joining me. Thanks for watching, viewers, and listening listeners, and speak to you all soon. Bye for now.